Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of This is Revolution Podcast. Thank you guys for your patience. I just want you to know that all of the black people that are on the show were on time. It was the one white guy that was late, fucking it up for everybody. And without any further ado, let me bring in the man whose idea was to do this show. Originally, we had Abby Martin booked for tonight, actually. We've had that show booked for a while, and something came up last minute, and we were probably going to cancel the evening, and then Pascal decided to watch Dave Chappelle's special, and he was struck with an idea to do a show about it. So let me bring in my homie, my dog, the man with the Mau Mau, Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Myles.
Well, were you surprised we had to wait for the white guy that long?
The person who had the CP time was the Caucasian dude.
Yeah. And he's white as shit too. He's not wigger white. So
you mean he doesn't do the human beatbox with like, you
know? No. Don't even try to make him do it. But that being said, we made a little clip for today. And we didn't even announce who was going to be on the show because we didn't know who we were going to have, because some people said they were going to do it. And then last minute people said they couldn't make it. I think ultimately cats were just afraid that they were going to get canceled. What do you think?
Possible. Very possible.
I actually think that was really what happened. That cats were just hell of afraid. But I am glad I did get a friend of mine who actually opens for Dave Chappelle and who actually used to come on this show when I first started. So let's play this intro clip so we can get ready for what we're going to talk about tonight.
Warning. For viewers sensitive to issues of race, be advised that the following piece contains gratuitous use of the N-word. And by N-word, I mean nigger. There, I said it.
In his recent Netflix special, The Closer, Dave Chappelle opened a firestorm of controversy due to his attacks on cancel culture and the identity politics of modern America. Does Chappelle's comedy special cross the boundaries of acceptable discourse? Should such boundaries even exist? Has the political culture been poisoned with an intolerance that stifles creative freedom? Or are various groups trying to protect themselves from the harms of an intolerant nation? We'll ask these questions and more. This is Revolution.
Boogie, boogie, nigger! Boogie, boogie! Did he just call us niggers? Awesome!
Yo, the white boys at the end get me every time. Oh, I can't hear you. I lost your audio.
I forgot I have to mute myself. I watched that like 10 times in a row when I did it. Our white person is having some login problems, and I have to get him on. So can you explain to people what you want to talk about, Pascal, while I send him
No problem. So, as you guys saw by the intro that we did, that we were, I don't want to say compelled, but we were interested in having a conversation about Dave Chappelle's recent and most recent Netflix special, The Closer. And what prompted me to want to have a conversation about The Closer was I found the comedy special to be more a social commentary than a comedic piece. And I was very interested in having a conversation about why this particular comedy special, in my opinion, was going to be a cultural touchstone moment. And what I mean by a cultural touchstone moment, I think that good, bad, or indifferent, Chappelle touched into a particular zeitgeist in the current moment in the psyche of the American popular not only popular scene but the overall cultural scene. And I think it has to do with the fact that one, we have a very, very divided society politically and ideologically. I think that, probably more divided than we've seen since the early 70s and the late 60s in terms of the political discourse in the country. Number two, we have this phenomenon or perceived phenomenon of cancel culture that people are talking about. I think we should talk about whether also on this show, whether that's a real thing or not, or really it's just kind of an elite discourse. That we also have the advent of the conversation around wokeness, around woke culture. What is woke culture? Is it really a thing? And the way in which the way in which different segments of society are positioning this. So that was really the way in which I wanted to use Chappelle's sketch comedy appearance on Netflix as a door into the conversation of how he positions himself in that sketch relative to those subject matters.
Well, let's bring in our guests. Our white person has arrived. Let's introduce him right now. Actually, you may know him as the man that is not afraid to give anyone an argument. He actually recently today wrote a piece about the Dave Chappelle sketch because people kept asking him constantly what he thought about it, since he wrote a book recently called Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. I was on his show last night and a couple weeks before with the Touré Reed. He is Ben Burgis. Oops.
Hey, and I'm glad you could make it. I hope you guys.
You are so late. Your credit score dropped 10 points.
I just appreciate you beating Doug's last introduction to me when I went at zero. I think he introduced me as a micro niche celebrity, and now I've just been downgraded to a white person.
The white person.
The white person.
But this man is the next gentleman is my comedian best friend, but he's also one of my best friends. We've known each other since high school. He makes phone calls like this to me. Jason, I need you to come over. I'm doing this this special with Jerobi from Tribe Called Quest. I need you to help me out. That's this guy. He's actually performing comedy tonight in Oakland, so he's only going to be with us for a short time. And he actually opens for Dave Chappelle and was around when Chappelle was working on the material for The Closer. He is Chris Riggins. I don't hear you, Chris. You muted yourself. You muted yourself. I still can't hear you. That's what happens when you do this shit on the phone. You got to fantastic. You got to unmute yourself. I'm going to try to fix this guy's problems. Pascal, talk to Ben.
Ben, since I have not been dispatched to talk to you. So the question I wanted to ask, I'll start off by asking you, Ben, is that I know you read your book, Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. And I also know that you're generally not a fan of canceling David Chappelle. My question to you is that do you think that Chappelle's comedy sketch, this particular one, is a cultural touchstone moment? I referred to it in that way and I have my reasons for doing so. Do you agree with my assessment that this particular sketch is a cultural touchstone moment?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess maybe I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that.
I mean that he is touched into a kind of moment in the political, or the not just political, the social zeitgeist that has kind of hit a vein that many people, whether or not they are students of politics or observers of politics, they all seem to have an opinion on, and they all feel very strongly about. So it's not something that's kind of being dismissed by anyone on any side of the fence or in the aisle, and everyone seems to be energized in some way or other by it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way that might be true. You know, I mean, I'm always really curious when people are hot and bothered by something like this. You know, whether anybody will still be, you know, talking about it, or, you know, have feelings about it as strong in, you know, a month or even a few weeks. But you know, regardless of whether that's true or not, I think that it's definitely true that in the special, the stuff that he is talking about, you know, I mean, there's a reason that it was such a flashpoint, you know, when it came out, you know, that he is going over subjects that you know, it feels like right now everybody is intensely interested in one way or another.
Hey, Chris, you were there. A lot of this stuff was getting worked out. Did you guys have any idea that this special would go over like that it's going over now? Or,
I mean, he's Dave Chappelle. Of course we did. We knew it was going to make a buzz either way. Come on, fucking Dave Chappelle. You know, I mean, it's one of those things with comedy. It's like, you know, I watched him practice a lot of these jokes, and I mean, they weren't all polished. I'll be real. I haven't seen the finished version yet. I'm kind of waiting for the hoopla to die down, because a great comedian by the name of Dave Chappelle told me not to sit around watching a bunch of comedy specials because it leaks into your own writing. So, you know, I tend to stay away from till everybody stops talking about it. But, you know, he built these jokes over a course of a couple of years. And, you know, you got to understand about comedians, these jokes always come from experience, always come from, you know, what they've been going through. Every comedian talks about what they've experienced, what they're going through. So Dave is no different. It's just that Dave has a way larger platform when it comes to doing that. So, I mean, I don't think anybody knew. I don't think it's a matter of anybody knowing that it was going to make a big hoop. I think it's a matter of just nobody gave a fuck. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of, you know, Dave Chappelle's a comedian. He's going to speak his mind. He's going to say what's on his heart, and you're going to agree with it. You're going to disagree with it. You're going to love it or you're going to hate it. And at the end of the day, each side is valid. If you don't like it, your feelings are valid. If you love it, your feelings are valid. If you know what I mean? It's just a talk of, you know, with yourself. You know, what do you feel? If you don't like it, don't watch it. Don't support it.
You've definitely pissed a few people off in your time telling jokes. I have been with you when you have.
I'm in Facebook jail right now. Both pages.
I've been with you when you've killed crowds. I've been with you when you've pissed a few people off. Do you ever think there's a line?
Yes. Everyone has their own line, though. And I don't know your line when I'm on stage. So if I'm telling a joke on stage and it's offending you, I do deeply do not want to offend you. But at the same time, I didn't know you was going to be here. I didn't know, you know what I'm saying? It's not personal. It's not directed at you. But there is a line. Like, you know, for instance, like if I'm doing a show and it's a room majority of women, especially black women, I have a joke where I say the word bitch several times. Depending on how many women in the crowd, I may leave the word bitch out a few times. Not because I don't feel comfortable saying it, just because I'm like, you know what? They came to laugh and this word might be triggering over and over and over again. So say it once for the laugh. they get it, and then I can leave it alone. I don't have to say it again. It's not a word I have to say. So, the line is with myself. You know what I mean? I draw my line in comedy as far as I'll go, because I can only draw that line. People are going to dislike or like whatever I say, no matter what I say. So I've just come to the conclusion that I have to draw my own line.
I want to ask Chris and Ben a question. Do you think there is a political nature to the comedy that Chappelle did in that special, or that he does overall?
Define political. Because right now, people use the word political as
political, as in addressing issues that deal with policy, distribution of resources, social behavior, the way in which institutions deal with human beings, or the way institutions look at human beings in American society.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think 846 certainly was, and parts of this were. I mean, like, he has a whole riff on the North Carolina bathroom laws. So whatever you think about it overall, I mean, there are definitely at least parts of this special that deal with that. Although I don't think that in your definition of political, which I like, right? I think that's a good definition. I don't think that in that definition, probably most of the special was political, but I think that there are parts of it that were.
Chris, what about you? Do you think that there was some aspect of the special, or his comedy overall, since you didn't watch the whole special, that is somewhat political?
I definitely believe, I guess for me right now, I'm in a place where you hear this word political so much in terms that are not political at all. Like, people say you're making something political, or you're politicizing things, or something that's, you're bringing politics into something. And, in my opinion, unless he really just talked on Biden and Harris and all that, I feel like what he was doing was more social. And I guess everything has politics in it. But to me, no, I don't feel like he's a political comic. I feel like if you want political comedy, you go to Bill Maher, you go to Jon Stewart. I don't know if necessarily Dave is politically, comedically doing this. I think it's just his social take on what's happening in the world.
Do you think it's more of, I kind of see that too, because politically he's never really had the best politics. So I think it's more social commentary that people want to make a greater deal out of than it really is. Do you disagree, Pascal?
Yeah,
I definitely think it's social commentary. My first reaction to the special, well, I felt that he was doing more social comedy than actual comedy, more social commentary than comedy. I believe that there was definitely a strong social commentary component to the special. And my reaction when watching the whole special is I felt that this was something that was a product of something internally that had been bothering him for a while that he wanted to get out. This is not something that just popped up out of nowhere, that just kind of like, oh, and one day I'm going to talk about this subject. I think that there's something that internally he's been dealing with inside his psyche, or something he's been viewing, that he decided to push these particular buttons. And I do believe he's intentionally pushing some buttons. Now, we can get into the question as to why he's particularly pushing these buttons, right? And I think that's a fair conversation. Like, the conversation, I think a question needs to be had is that, does Dave Chappelle have a particular fixation or reason that he believes needs to have a fixation with the LGBTQ community? I mean, he does say in the sketch that this is the last time I'm talking about y'all. So the question becomes, why did you feel the need to talk about, quote unquote, y'all being the LGBTQ community in the first place, and, as a community? So what I'm saying is that he sets up a dialogue in the special where this particular community, if you want to call them a community, is a group of people he wants to address. So he obviously feels a specific reason why that is. Now, the reason why that is, we can ascertain, or maybe Chris can let us in as well, but I have my personal opinions based on what he said in his prior specials. But I would like us to at least acknowledge that he makes it clear that he wants to address this specific community in this special. Am
Yeah.
I off? Am I off on that, or do you guys agree?
I think he's addressing a specific sect of that community. I think what people are really missing in the nuance is that he's talking to the white LGBT community. He is not speaking to the LGBT community that is part of our race. And I'm mostly because, and I brought up this point several times when people bring up that there are black and, you know, they're black and brown, you know, what LGBT people, what I always bring up is, well, you always put the fact that they're black and brown first. So you can't ignore that. So what I think it comes to, you know, him addressing it, it's like he doesn't have social media. He doesn't write blogs. He doesn't have all these things. He doesn't come out and speak publicly a lot. You know what I mean? So when he does these specials, this is his way of addressing everything that has been said over the past 4 years. You know what I mean? This is him addressing everything that happened from the last special. And as far as social commentary, if you look at what he did with 846, that was not comedy. That was him literally speaking to America from the mindset of a black man who's the same age as George Floyd. You know what I mean? And I think you have to understand Dave is definitely doing social commentary, and I'm not this, and I can't speak for Dave as to why he's doing it. That's his business. I don't know. What I do know is these are the issues he's addressing because these are the issues that have been addressed towards him. When you have a million people writing think pieces about it over the last few years, yeah, you don't go out on, he doesn't write a blog back. He doesn't go on social media and address them. This is his point to address them. So that may be reason why he's doing it. And I know for a fact that Dave is not out to hurt anybody, but at the end of the day, what I know from the discussion and what I've seen is that it's really kind of a discussion where he's asking the world to look at the struggles of all black people. Because, you know, while there are certain groups that we all fall into outside of our blackness, at the end of the day, blackness is what connects us all. So I don't know.
Now, I'm glad you said that, because that's the point that really was because, you know, I write about, and I'm a student of black politics. The thing that I found particularly interesting and somewhat sketchy about what Chappelle was doing was that he was leveraging the capacity to deem himself a representative of all of black community and all of the black community, and set this marker down and say, LGBT community, I, as a black man speaking on behalf of the black community, we need to address this problem. And the question I was saying is that who gave Dave Chappelle the authority to believe that he could do that, number one. And number two, even though I understand he may be positioning the argument as if he's talking to the white LGBTQ community, I'm not absolutely sure he makes that abundantly clear in his framing. Mm-hmm. He does say that I've never had a problem with the LGBTQ community. I've had a problem with white people. And he does proceed to give anecdotes of the way he finds it problematic that particularly racist white men, according to his narrative, can become trans in the way he frames it, and then believe that they have some kind of positioning as an oppressed group. But at the same time, I never hear in the series any addressing of the particular way in which black LGBTQ people may feel that they have a way in which they connect with the issues of this LGBTQ community. And I'm not qualified to speak on that community as well. But is it possible that he might be erasing the narrative or the concerns of black LGBTQ folk? Either one of you or both of you jump in. What do you think, Chris?
I think that's very valid. I think that's very true. He could, I think what happens is, as a comedian, we kind of speak with this assumption, who we're talking to. And I think with Dave, over the years of his career, you've seen the topic of what has mostly been his comedy, which is racism, which is going at white people. And so I think what he might be going under the assumption, again, I don't know because I can't speak for Dave. All I can do is say what I feel is that, you know, he may be coming from the assumption that, you know, he's talking to white gay people. And unfortunately, you're right. And the problem with this is that the Black LGBTQ community does get pushed to the side and does have their needs kind of pushed away, because there are a lot of and I'm just gonna say it, there are a lot of Black people who are homophobic and who aren't really on board with Black LGBTQIA people. So it boils down to a point of like, yeah, those people can definitely latch on and use his messaging to push an agenda that will further stifle the movement of the Black LGBTQ community in America as they try to find a place in the white LGBT community, because definitely it's complicated. You know what I mean? To be Black in America, to be a Black citizen in a country where your race disqualifies you from a lot of things, but then you also have all these other aspects of life that you fall into. Where you're gay, now you have racism and homophobia, where you go out into the world and you're called a nigger, and then you're called you're called a fag by everybody else. So it's kind of like it's a double whammy. So in what he's doing, there's definitely a chance for his message to be misconstrued and actually missed over completely. And that's kind of what happens. People kind of miss the whole message when they get emotionally offended, and that's how anybody is. We're all like that. So yeah.
I want to pivot to Ben, but let me just follow up with Chris. Chris, do you have any problem at all with the fact that Dave Chappelle feels that he can leverage the political will of a whole race of people at that moment in his comedy and kind of, I don't want to, if I'm wrong, correct me, kind of make it this kind of Black community, LGBTQ kind of binary kind of thing? That's one of the things that I found kind of problematic, is that he feel that like what I have a problem with what I call racial ventriloquism, is that, you know, the chosen Negro who gets to speak for everyone else. I tend to think that paradigm doesn't work for Black people ever, no matter who it is or how good they may be as the ventriloquist. And I was just wondering, do you think, and if you disagree, I mean, I have to respect it. Do you think there might be a problem with him feeling that he can kind of be the leverager of collective Black political angst in his comedy at that moment?
Well, from what I can say, I can't say that he feels that way. So I don't want to say that that's how he feels, because we don't know. He might not really feel that way, but at the same time, I think it's more of a responsibility thing, because there's a lot of people that do feel the same way as Dave Chappelle, and there's a lot of people who don't. I think the thing is, he has the largest voice of the people that feel that way. So when he does say it, it does give them that validation and that kind of like, okay, see, we're not crazy. We're not, and I think what happens is nuance. People have no idea. People only deal in extremes for some reason. So the extremists are definitely going to jump on that and say that, he speaks for all of us. But I don't know if that's how he feels. Me personally, I don't knowing Dave, I don't think he feels he's speaking for all of us. I feel like he's literally speaking for himself. But it can come off as he's speaking for all of us when he juxtaposes it like that in the way that he's done in this special.
Because there is a quote from the special, right? And you contextualize this, because I'm open to your perspective here, because you know the brother, you're friends with him. One of the last lines in the special, he says, and I'm quoting directly, LGBTQ community, stop punching down on my people. Now, when he says my people, who do you think he's talking about? Now, I know a lot of Black people think he's talking about Black people, but he could be talking about Black comedians, entertainers, just comedians.
I think in context, it really seems like he means comedians.
Right.
You think he means comedians?
I think he definitely means comedians, because the whole special.
I wouldn't necessarily say that.
I wouldn't say
the whole special.
I definitely think.
Let Ben finish. Go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, I think that in context, the reason that I think that he's talking about comedians is two things. One, that he's talking throughout the special about entertainers who he thinks of various kinds, who he thinks were like unfairly attacked, or judged too harshly because of things that they've said about these issues. Like that's the big context. And then like 2 minutes before he said that line, "Stop punching down on my people," he was talking about his trans friend who killed herself, and he said, her tribe wasn't being trans. Her tribe was was my tribe, which is comedians, which he just said that a couple minutes ago. So that's the reason that I think that. Now, I will also say what Pascal is talking about. And I think one big thing here is that I think it does matter that this is a comedy special, that this is not an editorial. He's not just saying like, here's exactly what I think. Here's exactly what I think. He's definitely using it to explore what he really thinks, like explore his mixed feelings about this stuff. But that doesn't, like if you took everything literally, it would just be a weird jumble, right? Like he says, one minute he says I'm on Team Turf, the other minute he says trans women are women, like there's a lot of stuff that just directly contradicts itself that he says, which if you're reading it like an editorial doesn't make sense. But if you see it as he's using comedy to try to like work through all of his feelings about this stuff, then I think it starts to make a little bit more sense. And I think that it is true, right? What Pascal's talking about, the racial ventriloquism, like I get it, right? Because definitely, at least, the man has told a lot of jokes over the years where that's been the premise, right? I mean, this Chappelle show.
Yeah, I mean, no one has a problem with it when it's a racial premise. Everybody loved the black Klansman that I opened the.
Or like I mean, there was literally a sketch about the racial drafts where where representatives of races were drafting people onto
where he
it.
did a character of Tiger Woods with big teeth, and
yeah. And it's what's interesting to me is that for some reason people have projected onto guys like Dave Chappelle that he is more than a comic. And if you've followed his career, I don't know why the guy that did Half Baked all of a sudden is a voice of social commentary for a people and a nation. I mean, there's things that he did in the Chappelle show that I thought like kind of resonated. One of the first times I heard someone talk about healthcare for all was on the Chappelle show. I think in his first or second season, he made a joke about that.
That's what did it. That's kind of what did it was the Chappelle. Because like, here's the thing. If we think about images and how people's images change throughout their careers, for instance, when Ice Cube came out, when we were kids, Ice Cube was a gangster rapper.
For sure.
He was talking about shooting niggas and doing all kinds of crazy shit. My kids know Ice Cube as an actor. Yeah. They only know Ice Cube from Are We There Yet? They only know Ice Cube from Silver Screen. So when you think of someone like Dave Chappelle, yeah, he did Half Baked, but then he did this show called The Chappelle Show, which was probably one of the most revolutionary, game-changing shows in the industry, because if you notice after that, every show tried to be like Chappelle's show. Mm-hmm. So and then the fact that he walked away from it because he didn't want to be exploited was a whole other thing that made him look like a social.
Yeah. Oh, you broke up, Chris. Did you guys hear him, or is it just?
No, I lost him to the end.
Oh yeah, Chris, you broke up. Damn it. Deep State is getting on the internet. This is what happens when you have nuanced conversations. The deep state gets you. I mean, you guys hear me?
I hear you.
I hear you. Yeah.
Chris broke up. I'm really sorry that Chris.
This is where I agree with all of you. Is that number one? I don't think we should be taking our political and social cues from entertainers, comedians, musicians, pop culture figures. Period. Across the board. I think that anyone who watches this show, anyone who knows me, realizes that I do not believe popular culture is the place from which you take your social, political cues, ideas, or otherwise. And I think part of the problem with American society is that we do too much of that. But
would you say this? Well, Pascal, would you say this? Ben wrote a piece in the Medium, right? He wrote it kind of today. I think he wrote it today. And I'm asking you this question as well, Chris. Throwing this out to you as well. And in a response to a very actually pretty well-rounded response to Ben's piece, the person said people now don't trust the news, so they look to comedians. I didn't necessarily agree with that 100% because I think there's so much alternative media on the internet, as we can see today. We have a lot of people watching the show more than usual. But I do think before the breakout of all this left media on the internet, there was Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, who were the comedic alternative news sources for a lot of people. And I do think for a hot minute, people were getting their news from comedy for a hot minute. I don't think they're doing it anymore. What do you guys think about that?
I think that there is a general aspect of American society that's not particularly new, that I would argue goes back even up until it goes back to like, Frank Sinatra doing commercials during like World War II, where there is a way in which celebrity has been used in American society with the rise of film media, analog media in all forms, in which celebrities are used to convey social and political commentary. I don't think that's exclusive to America, but that is very much an American thing. And I think that phenomenon, in an age when we have a crisis of legitimacy of our political institutions, our medical institutions, our educational institutions, people will depend on who they believe they like. And people believe they have what they call a parasocial relationship with entertainers. They like these people, so they put a position of trust on these people. And as a result of those things, they give those people more power over their opinions than they perhaps normally should.
And they get their heart broke when those people don't follow their opinion. And actually what you're saying is actually kind of like the same problem that cancel culture really has. I'm gonna say cancel culture because, we've had it forever. People have always decided what they liked and what they didn't like. The problem I think with what they don't see is that, okay, you don't have to like the thing. But the thing is, when your favorite celebrity doesn't do or follow along the path that you think they should, and you get so devastated by it that you feel like everybody should abandon this person too, is when you get into the point where you're not looking at it through a nuanced mindset of like, okay, I didn't like that. I really didn't like that. And I don't think I'm going to watch that again. I don't think I'm going to do it. Now it becomes, because I've seen people over the past few days, it's like last year they loved Dave Chappelle. They were trying to call me to get into his shows. They were hitting me up saying, hey, are you opening? They love all this stuff. They hit me with these little messages. Hey, next time you talk to Dave, tell Dave I said this. Just little stuff like that. And now I see them online. Oh, Dave is letting me down. Dave I'm so hurt. Dave, I can't believe Dave did. And it's like, what? You don't know Dave. And like you said, they have these relationships with these celebrities through media that they only and honestly, the monster has gotten too big because social media also adds to that. The fact that I can tweet this celebrity now, or I can follow this person on Instagram and I'm watching them take a video of themselves in their bathroom while they're picking out outfits for this big event that they're going to that I'm going to watch on TV later. So now I feel like I have this connection. So, and then there's also the ownership thing where people feel like I pay for something, you perform, therefore I own what you do. This happens a lot with us, and I think with comedians, it's a hard line because people want us to be unabashed. They want us to say the stuff they're scared to say, but then we're also the ones that take the most blame when we do say those things. And everybody's like, look at you. Because if we want to be real, something that Dave was talking about actually came true. John Gruden released all his emails. In his emails, he makes racist comments. He's like, yeah, I forgot I made those, or I'm sorry. And he coaches the game. They find out he makes homophobic slurs, and now he has to quit.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and I'd like to tap into that because this is something I was having a conversation with with a friend of mine, and he mentioned that, Dave Chappelle was clairvoyant because of this situation, And one of the questions that I want to ask, Ben, I'd like you to tap on this. Do you think that Chappelle in this special, and Chris jump in as well, is setting up a kind of binary? Some would call oppression Olympics. Well, you may not want to get that pejorative. A binary between LGBTQ people and Black people in some aspects of his comedy. Chris, you can jump in as well.
Before Ben responds to that, Chris has to go. He actually has a show he has to do in Oakland.
No, I keep going. I got some seconds.
Okay. Well, I'll shut the fuck up then.
Keep going.
Sorry, I apologize for
interrupting.
interrupting.
I want you to jump in. I want to jump in with that. I want you to jump in as well, but I'll let Ben hit that one first, and Chris, you can tap that one as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably a fair criticism. I mean, like I said, I think that there's a lot of comedy that he's done going back to Chappelle's show, where the premise of the joke, at least, is that he or other people get to speak for entire giant groups, Black people, gay people, whatever. And to the extent that you think that that's really what he's doing, then yeah, I agree with you. That doesn't make sense. For exactly the flip side of the reason that Chris said, that the same reason it doesn't make sense for people to be, to think that this person they've never met, it's hurtful that that he disagrees with them. But to the extent that what you think he is doing is you think that he is working through his own personal views on this stuff, and it's like a jokey setup, for that to say, hey, I'm here to negotiate a truce, between the Black people, the gay people, then I think it's a little bit different. I mean, it's always the least funny question to ask about comedy is how much of it is joke and how much of it is serious. But I also get that given what he's talking about here, it's a fair question.
Chris, do you think he's kind of setting up, because you brought me kind of to this question with your statement? Uh-huh. Is he setting up this kind of binary where is Dave Chappelle saying, listen, there's a hierarchy of oppression in this country, and my people, the Black people, are not at the top of the hierarchy, and the gays are, the LGBTQ are at the top of the hierarchy, and I got a problem with them being at the top of the hierarchy. Do you believe that Dave Chappelle is making that type of statement? I'm asking your opinion.
I think he is, but I think it's more than just him making the statement willy-nilly without any kind of experience. Here's the thing. This whole thing is complicated because being in America is complicated. Like I said earlier, being a Black person in America is complicated. One thing he said in one of his specials that I definitely agree with, and I think is something that we need to look at, is that if there were no white people part of the LGBTQ community, would they get as much? Would they have gotten as far in their rights as they have so far? And I don't necessarily like the oppression limits. I think that oppressed people are all needing to unite and fight together. I come from the Bay Area where the Black Panthers came, and Huey Newton was very big on working with the gay community because, anybody's oppressed rights is wrong. But when you're talking about America and you talking to Black people, you do kind of have to keep that in mind that, we have had to set this country on fire just to get justice for one person. We had to, and I'm not saying that, the pandemic didn't help seeing that everybody was home, but we basically have had to riot, die, burn, do all these things to get something, and it's not happening because we are simply one color. And I think when you think about the LGBT community, you have people from all races that make that community. And if you have white men in any community, they have the white privilege, straight up. White, straight, gay, doesn't matter. They have that white male privilege. And if they use it, they can get things done a lot faster than, say, me and you going out to protest and march for our rights. You see what I'm saying?
But at the same time, what I find interesting about that is that poor, gay, white, or Black, or LGBTQ people aren't exactly feeling the fatback and biscuits of this LGBTQ rights. They're getting ground to powder. They are, I would agree with you, there are a lot of very wealthy, elite LGBTQ people who are riding the wave of these movements, and definitely are getting the limousine treatment in terms of the benefits from them and being spokesmen from them. But I don't see I don't see much people advocating about the fact
But
that
I think that's what kind of the world that Dave Chappelle lives in, and I think a lot of people don't
Exactly.
really
I was going to say that the gay people that he are around and he is witnessing are on that level. The ones on the street with us, we see the nuance, we see the level, we see it. But for him, he's up here and he's like, these are the people that are part of the problem, because they're the ones that control what's going down to the ones beneath them. So, you know, it's just like him speaking out, they are using their platform to, you know what I mean, do things and use a movement to get what they want, but they really have no interest in the people in the movement.
He sees more Alyssa Milano than he sees, you know, any real woman in a struggle that might say Me Too, right? Because that's the world that he's in. It's, if you watch when he gets the Mark Twain Award, there's a picture of him and Nancy Pelosi. So again, I don't know if people really understand being in that world, and kind of he's been in it for a minute now.
Yeah, but don't you think that Chappelle, that means that Chappelle is projecting a class project on large numbers of people who aren't participating in that class project?
I think you can't even look at it like this. It's almost like that's almost like the argument of saying, if I call out white people for racism, I'm in fact being racist. No, I don't think he's creating a class project as much as he's saying, look, this is what's happening. This is what I'm seeing. Because at the end of the day, remember, we're comedians. We report what we see. He's not up there with numbers and statistics and everything. He's just saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, one interesting thing about that, with what Chris is saying about how he's and what, you know, Jason is saying about how he's reacting to what he sees, is that increasingly in the last couple, in both this and Sticks and Stones before it, the poor people who are referenced most are actually poor white people in Ohio. You know, since that's where he lives. You know, so like he has
is surrounded by poor white people in Ohio. I've been there.
So on Sticks and Stones, he's got this extended joke about how poor white people love heroin, and he says, you know, he says Ohio is an old Indian word for poor white people country, and you know, and there's a little bit of that in this special too. He says, you know, he's describing this crowd of people drinking these like super cheap drinks at this bar in Ohio that he's at, you know, when he first runs into Daphne. And, you know, he's saying that these are like Trump voters and this and that. And he's like, you know, like Michigan white people. So that's, you know, which is, but I mean, like, that is like a kind of a dramatic illustration, I think, of what, you know, of what Jason and Chris are saying, that like, he's not necessarily talking, and I mean, this is not a defense. This is just an observation, you know, that he's, you know, he's milking for material for this, not like typical members of any group, but like,
it's like when I say white people, I don't mean poor white people. When I talk about white people on stage, I'm not talking about the poor whites. I'm not talking about the white people that are on the lower rung. I'm talking about the
white people we went to school with.
I'm talking about the white people that own shit. You know what I'm saying? As my friend Joseph Vanderlyn would say, the white people that own shit. And I think what's happened is we've gotten a comfortability as Black people of saying white people and not specifying which white people we're talking about, because we never had to. And I think when he's doing this, he has to remember, and this is just my opinion on it, that you have to kind of maybe specify more clearly which white people you talk to. Because we live in a day and age where there's new white people. I've never been around so many white people that have been so offended by me pointing out their racism in my life. You know, back in the day, they didn't give a fuck. They were like, "Oh, I'm racist. Cool beans, nigger," and they kept it moving. Now, it's like, you're racist.
There was some very racist shit.
I'm not racist. You're racist because you think I'm racist because I'm white, and I'm like, no, I think you're racist because you just did some racist shit. But if you think it's because I think you're white, then I can't argue with you no more. I can't even debate you, because you've already come into this disingenuous without any kind of knowledge of how racism actually works. So You know, it's like I said, I don't necessarily agree with everything Dave says, and that's just because I'm a comedian. Some of his jokes are good, some of his jokes are not great to me. But at the end of the day, everybody is valid to feel how they feel. If you feel offended by a special, you didn't like it, your feelings are valid. If you loved it, your feelings are valid, because this comedy is subjective. It's going to give you a feeling either way, and the goal for someone like Dave Chappelle is just to get a feeling. So whatever feeling you're given.
Does everyone on the panel agree? And Chris, do you have to go now? Is it time for you to go, or you can stay?
One more question. Time for one more question.
Do you guys feel collectively? If I think Dave Chappelle, regardless of how you feel about him, started a conversation, and there was a bit of, at the end of it, my trans best friend, like my black best friend, and there definitely was some oppression Olympic shit in it. But ultimately, you're watching a person literally like work through their understanding of how they view this. Yeah, go ahead.
That was a part of the San Francisco comedy scene. So she's a comedian that I know. I met her when she met Dave. I was there. She, you know what I'm saying? I was there when that went. So that's why it's like kind of like, no, it's not a story of like my trans best friend. It's like, nah, he really developed a relationship with this person, and she was helping him understand it. And what a lot of people don't know, and he said it especially, is that when people from the San Francisco, and I'm saying white trans community, found out she was friends with Dave Chappelle, they began harassing her and doxing and just doing all kinds of mean, cruel stuff. And it drove her to a point where she didn't care about life no more. And so that can't be glossed over. And the fact that that's who he's talking to, like those people. And so I think, you know, in the aspect of it all, there's always performative in everything. You know, he's a performer. He's on stage. There's lights. There's a microphone. There's an audience. So of course there's a performative to it, but that doesn't take the genuine story out of what happened, because a lot of, like I said, comedians pull from their real lives. We pull from what happens to us and we put it out there and what we see and how the world operates. And that's, I think, why people come to us, because we give you just exactly what we see.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Chris Riggins.
Oh, no problem, Jason. Anytime.
Hey, I appreciate you. I love you like play cousin. And when I'm up in the Bay Area, I will call you so we can go to Denny's.
Oh, Denny's? You know, I'm healthy now.
Oh,
I eat much better than that.
Oh, well, excuse me.
I'm healthy now.
Oh, someone's a rich Negro now. Sorry.
Well, you know, I got COVID rich, you know what I'm saying? I was out here balling on these COVID dollars, like, you know what I'm saying? Now getting this COVID cash, balling, pandemic, balling, baby. Kind of mad they cut me off. You see my addiction.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Go to your show and kill it like you always do.
Make sure you guys follow me.
Nice meeting you, Chris.
All right, follow me on Instagram. All right, nice meeting you guys. Have a great night. Thank you for letting me speak, guys. Love you all.
Peace, brother.
All right, peace.
That is my very good friend, Chris Riggins. Let's give him a big fucking. If you are a patron of this show, if you dig deep in the patron archives, Chris had this idea, and he said, Jason, I have this idea. I want to do jokes, but I want to be like the Rat Pack, but I want to have a band, and I'm going to tell jokes with a band, and we're going to play like old 90s hip hop. I'm going to have a whole band playing 90s hip hop, and I'm going to tell jokes. And we recorded that at the studio while I was there. So I actually have the audio of that, which is really cool. So if you're a patron, that is up in the patron after hours. And speaking of the patron after hours, I don't know if Ben knows this. I paid a bunch of money for a phone system. Oh, yeah. Call screener Jean Bajlan is ready to help me screen calls for the patron after hours, where we can take people's calls that want to yell at us about what we said wrong, what we didn't get right, what we don't understand. We're here for it. But your ass only has 2 minutes, because I do pay for it, and the motherfuckers make me pay by the second.
people think that I'm upset. Actually, my allergies are getting on my nerves. That's why I'm looking so annoyed right now. I just got like a major allergy burst. It has nothing to do. I enjoy Chris's commentary very much. So my allergies are like acting up right now.
Ben, are you going to be able to join us, or do you have husband shit to do?
No, I'm happy to. I'm happy to join. I do want. I do want to say, and actually, by the way, for a second.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, you're going to send me the link for the after hours, so I can send it to GTA patrons. I know we've got I'm not sure how many of them are patrons, but I've got about 150 people watching there right now. But okay, yeah. So if we're wrapping up, I do just want to say because I know that a lot of people barely touched on some of the stuff.
Say it again, Ben. You got cut up. You got choppy.
Damn it. Okay.
Man, a deep state.
Yeah. So before the deep state, saying that I know, I'm sure there are lots of people right now, who might be watching this on This Is Revolution or GTA, who are thinking not unreasonably, hey, they barely touched on some of the stuff that people are most upset about from the special, and fair enough. I mean, like there's enough going on here that you can't really get to everything, but
in an hour.
Yeah, you can't get to everything in an hour. I mean, we didn't even say the word space Jews, which comes up repeatedly in this special. But I did earlier today, because I knew I wanted to kind of get my thoughts together about some of this stuff, because I knew I was going to be talking to, you gentlemen about it, and so I did write up like a little review of it. It's since I knew like Jacobin is not wants no part of any of this, so I didn't try to send it to them. I just put it up on Medium, so you can go benburgess.medium.com, and it's right up on the top. But what I tried to get into most of all is, I think, the thing that most of it centered on, which is like not the racial ventriloquism issue that Pascal's raising, which I actually think is an extremely valid thing to raise about this, or the oppression Olympics part. Although again, I think trying to figure out what he's saying about that and how much he's feeding into that, I think is extremely fair. But what I really tried to focus on was some of the things that were quoted and a lot on Twitter as evidence that he was just being, openly and gleefully transphobic, the I'm on Team Turf line and stuff like that. And why I think that, without defending everything that he said, why I think that when you actually watch the special, you get a very different impression of why he was, of what some of that stuff meant, how, when somebody is doing stand-up comedy, it's not the case that all or even most of the sentences that come out of their mouth are like, this is literally what I soberly think. He had, like, on Sticks and Stones, he said, "I'm a victim blamer." That was a line, in there. And he does a lot of this kind of thing. And I'm not telling anybody that if they're offended by this, they're wrong to be offended by it. Because, I think you should, especially people who've had to experience things, like oppression of trans people, which is very, very real, that none of us have. Then, I think that, I think I'm certainly not going to tell anybody from that background how they're supposed to feel about it. Or that, it's not completely up to them to decide, this is not cool. I don't like this guy anymore. All reasonable, I think so. But I would just say that the impression that you get of what some of these lines were doing in the special, and whether he was actually calling himself TERF or whether he was actually trying in a weird way, through the medium of this kind of rough comedy to come to a place of greater empathy and explain why it is that that he's actually evolved on this issue, and what that relationship to Daphne meant on him, and where he ultimately comes down at the end of the special. And by the way, far from being this just edgelord just trying to piss people off for the sake of pissing people off, one of the last lines of the special is that he's not going to joke about this anymore until he's sure that everybody's laughing together. Which, whatever you think about that, you can think that he fails in the project that he lays out in this last special to try to come to that place of greater empathy and mutual understanding. But even if you think that, that's just very different from the impression that you get from reading the summaries on Twitter. So I just wanted to say that for people who are not patrons of either show, and who are not going to see the after hours people yelling at us and us responding, I just wanted to lay that out just a little bit, and to say you can go read the Medium piece. I stuck in the episode description on GTA at the beginning, and you get the long version of that there.
Well, we will see you guys shortly. It is patreon.com/Bitter Lake Presents. If you're not a patron, then be one, or you'll miss out on all the fun of watching Pascal not yell at people that call in. But I will, because I'm a dick. And on that note, we're out. What are they going to get? They're going to get no cartoons.